Hello, and welcome to the Orthodontic Products Podcast. I'm your host, Alison Werner. On today's episode, sponsored by Ormco, we're going to talk about how Ormco has evolved with the ever-evolving orthodontic industry. And joining me to do that is Dr. Nadia Nizam, an accomplished orthodontist and practice owner who leads a thriving multi-million-dollar practice in Calgary, Alberta, while staying at the forefront of innovation in the orthodontic industry. We'll talk about spark aligners, Ormco's digital bonding tech, and what it means to be a woman in leadership in the field. If you're in private practice and thinking about where the industry is headed, this episode is for you. Dr. Nizam, thanks for joining me.
Well, thank you for that generous introduction.
You're welcome. Okay, so talk to me about your practice and how you came to orthodontics.
So I started my practice exactly 13 and a half years ago. That's a week before my son was born. So I
Hmm.
built this practice from scratch. And it was, I was 8 months pregnant, started the practice from scratch. And again, I was new to Calgary. So
Okay.
starting a practice where I didn't know anyone, no referral based, nothing was
Mhm.
definitely a difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
However, I knew in my heart that I wanted to establish something that was my own. I didn't want to carry on someone else's legacy. I wanted to
Hmm.
create my own legacy. So, although the decision was a tough one and also a risky one,
Hmm.
I think I did it in a good time, though. I think nowadays that is changing. I think a lot of people have to look at a whole whack of things before they say, okay, I'm going to start my own office. So, things
Hmm.
have changed. So, I was definitely lucky in that perspective. I was also lucky that I started the office. Again, as I mentioned, I was pregnant. So, as a woman, you have to consider those things as well. We're going to cover
Yeah.
that later. But when I started my practice, it was very slow. So, I was able to raise two kids in that 2 year period.
Okay.
When the practice grew. And when it grew, I just knew that I was setting my practice up in a location that there were four orthodontists, 5 kilometers away from me. And I was the
Hmm.
first female establishing in that environment. So I need to create a niche for myself. And that's where my story of clear aligner comes in and how I switched to spark aligners. But I created a niche for myself to be different, to
Okay.
offer to my patients something that no one else was offering, and that really was my ticket to success.
Mm.
And in the last, 10 years or so, I am a single owner. I work 3 days a week. I don't want to work more than that. I've got two kids, as I mentioned.
Yeah.
So I wanted to have an office that was highly efficient because that's important to me. I don't want to work more than 3 days. And I
Hmm.
also wanted to have, a practice that I'm doing 500, 600 starts a year. So that
Okay.
was my goal. And that's what I accomplished a couple of years ago
Hmm.
with the help of clear aligners and brackets at the same time.
Yeah.
But that is sort of where my practice is now.
Okay. So, since this conversation is going to talk about kind of Ormco and how they're working with you, how long have you been using Ormco products and what was your introduction to the company's product portfolio?
For sure. So Ormco and I go way back. When I was in residency, we used the Damon bracket system,
Okay.
and so there's in residency you have 6, 8 clinics, and every instructor will give you a different bracket system. We are super super lucky. 3 of our clinics were actually Damon bracket systems, so we
Mm.
use the Damon brackets a lot.
Okay.
So when I graduated, there was not even a single thought in my mind that I would use any other bracket system. Although for a new grad, going to an Ormco bracket system, which is considered a more expensive bracket system, was a difficult. Usually, is a difficult thing for people to figure out
Yeah.
or to say, okay, this is what I'm going to use. But for me, there was not even a thought process. So my relationship with Ormco started as soon as I graduated, or even when I was in residency.
Okay.
So I started using the Damon bracket system, and I've not deviated for that. For
Okay.
the last 15 years, it's always been Ormco. And I feel like, for the longest time, Ormco always had a very deep, like a very deep connection with me because my Ormco rep is the one who came in when I opened the office to set up my brackets for me.
Mm.
And I feel like that is the whole feel of Ormco. It's a
Hmm.
very family oriented, company. It's
Yeah.
not just about brackets or aligners. It is, how do we make you successful? And that whole just the fact that my rep came in and set up my bracket system as I was 8 months pregnant
Yeah.
shows you that it's a company that really cares about you, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
It's carried on since then.
Yeah. Well, that might go to my next question for you. Ormco has always kind of marketed itself as an orthodontist first company. So, from your perspective in private practice, excuse me, how have they kind of continued to meet that real world need of clinicians like you over the years?
Okay. So I think Ormco is always a cut above every other company because when they came up with the Damon bracket system, because of Dr. Dwight Damon, it really was a revolutionary system. And Dr. Frost talks about this all the time, that no one really thought that this was going to work or this
Mhm.
is a good product.
Yeah.
And when we look at it now, we have revolutionized the industry where we're doing non-extraction cases. But this started with Dr. Damon a long time ago.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge revolution for them. And then came spark aligners,
Mhm.
where they came up with a product. They didn't just copy some other product. They said, no, let's come up with a different material that is clearer and more comfortable for the patient. And they really went in with the concept that how can we make the patients happy and then also the orthodontist happy. And I feel that is the reason why I switched from a different aligner brand to Spark couple of years ago is because they put me on the pedestal.
Mm.
Because really, at the end of the day, I hate to say this to companies, but your orthodontist is what's selling the product. Your product
Mm.
doesn't sell itself,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, and that's the reason why I feel more taken care of by Ormco, and I've always been just because I use their product. But they
Yeah.
they support me from all different directions.
Yeah. Well, you started to talk there about your experience with Sparkle Liner. So, talk to me a little bit more about your experience with integrating it into your practice, and how did that impact your kind of your treatment planning and your results?
So, Alison, I have to give you a little bit of, just a background. So, I was with a different aligner brand for the time I, graduated.
Yeah.
And for 12 years, I was a very loyal customer with the other
Hmm.
aligner brand. I was the top 1%
Yeah.
provider of that brand.
Hmm.
And what happened was that there were changes happening in that brand, and I asked them, "Hey, listen, can you not make those changes happen for me? I've been loyal to you." And they said, "You know what? No, if you do not use our product, you're going to lose." And I thought to myself, wait a second, you don't sell the product, I sell the product to the customer. So I felt right there that they didn't make me important. They not important, I don't want to be important, but they just took away my credibility.
Mm.
And so that was my transition to Spark
Okay.
aligners, right? So my transition was not really based on, is it a better brand? Is it a better, aligner material? Is it going to give me better results? It was
Hmm.
not that. It was out of, you know, I hate to say the word like desperation, to be very
Mm.
honest with you. But
Okay.
I made 100% switch from a
Okay.
different aligner brand to Spark.
Mm.
Now, after I made the switch, within 3 months, I realized, wow, my cases are turning out to be faster. The results are better. My patients are happier.
Mm.
What's going on? And
Hmm.
and that's when I realized it is actually Spark, right? And that's where I realized I'm doing the same thing I was doing before 10 years
Okay.
ago, but the Spark is what's changing the game here,
Hmm.
right? So that's sort of my transition. And over the last 2.5 years, it's been a game changer for
Yeah.
me. I mean, it is not just the material itself. It works like the way you want brackets to work, and
Mm.
that's huge for
Yeah.
someone who's used our liners for a long time. I never felt that it worked the same way.
Ah,
And
okay.
now I feel that.
Okay. So let's talk about kind of the bracket side of things. So you use Ormco's digital bonding technology. Can you walk us through how it's changed your approach to chairside and what kind of impact it's had on your team's workflow?
So I have to give you a little bit of background. When I was using the clear aligners, my office was about 80% aligners, 20% brackets.
Okay.
So my staff was trained to pretty much run the office without me because clear aligners, once I've designed it, they really
Hmm.
don't need me very much
Right.
for the fit appointments. And so when I switched to Spark aligners, I realized because I'm with one company, one stop shop, I don't really need to force anyone to do one or the other. Now I tell my patients, hey, whatever you want, I can make it happen for you,
Hmm.
right? You want braces, I'll give you the results that you're looking for. If you want clear aligners, I can do that. So now I give my patients the option to pick whatever they want.
Hmm.
When I started doing that 2.5 years ago, all of a sudden my practice switched from 80% aligners to now 60% aligners,
Hmm.
40%
Okay.
brackets.
Okay.
When it switched to 40% brackets, though, my team was not ready for that change
Mm.
because they didn't have that much time that I could provide in the
Okay.
clinic. So I had to switch to ODB because I couldn't be there to put the brackets
Hmm.
on during the clinic time. We
Right.
didn't have an hour and a half to slot for bonding appointment. So for me, it was just a transition that I had to remove myself from the equation. And that's what ODB gave me was I would design everything. It's indirect bonding, super accurate. The results again give me the same efficiency that I was used to. And I get to use my Damon Ultima brackets, which I love. So that's sort of where that transition and why it happened.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk to you about kind of female leadership in the industry. You've kind of built a name for yourself in the field that is in a field that's still growing. What has your journey looked like as a woman in orthodontics, and how do you think the industry is evolving in terms of gender representation and support?
So, Alison, the industry is definitely changing. I just read from the university that I graduated from, Western Ontario in London. Um, there used to be, when I graduated, there was about 30% were female.
Mm.
And then, fast go back 10 years from when I graduated, it was 5%.
Yeah.
Right now, we're sitting at 80 to 90% females
Really?
in the residency program.
Oh,
So it's
wow.
huge, it's
Yeah.
changing.
Yeah.
So I feel like hopefully that the females that are graduating now have less of what I had to go through.
Mhm.
I'm going to backtrack here. Remember, I said I wanted to establish my own office
Yeah.
because I wanted to establish my own, legacy. Now, part of the reason for that was because, I didn't 100% want to do that right off the bat. I thought I'll just, associate with someone.
Hmm.
The three associate, places that I went to talk about if there was any future there,
Yeah.
every single one of them asked me the same question. You just got married. When are you going to have kids?
Mm.
And that got me thinking that, that's kind of interesting. I'm not
Hmm.
going to tell you when I'm going to have kids, but I am
Yeah.
going to go open up my own office though.
Right.
so, so, the world is definitely changing and I'm hoping there's less of that now, right? But it's still difficult because women leadership or women leaders, if a man exerts himself and, says, okay, I want autonomy and this and that, he's considered a good leader.
Yeah.
But when a woman does that, still now you're considered the B word.
Hmm.
Right? So the babe
Yeah.
boss or whatever that might be,
Yeah.
you don't come out. So, I have this struggle every single day in my office as a leader. I have to exert myself, but not in that way. I
Yeah.
have to do it in a very maternal fashion. I do have to come up with a lot of reasons for the reason why I stand my ground, that these are the
Hmm.
changes I want, but lots of reasoning have to come with it. Right. Now,
Right.
that could be the new generation that's working with me. They're not just going to follow, right?
Hmm.
However, I think because I'm a female, I have to come up with this stuff. My leadership
Mm.
style is very different than I think a male leadership style would be, right?
Yeah.
So, so that's, I think, challenging for us.
Hmm.
We also have, you know, after I finish my conversation with you, my kids are going to be home in 2 hours. So I have to make sure there is, snacks ready for them. So it's not just that, I have to do this podcast and I have to take
Hmm.
care of, 20 approval cases. I run a multi-million dollar business as a CEO, but I'm
Yeah.
also the CEO of the house. No matter
Right.
how involved my husband is, I have to run that. And I think that is something that female orthodontists really have to hone in on. They really have to be comfortable with that and they have to work hard. We have a pretty tough job, to be
Yeah.
very honest, as a female.
Yeah. Well, talk to me about, how your product choices and having that workflow that allows you to work those 3 days or to have that balance, how that all plays in to each other and connects.
So I couldn't do this if I didn't have, Spark aligners or ODB or Ormco, with me. So, and the reason is because I want to see 90 to 100 patients every day.
Okay.
I cannot do that if I'm only doing brackets.
Mm.
So I have to have Spark aligners in there,
Yeah.
right? Because it takes me away from the chair. I also cannot do the 3 days a week if I don't meet my goals at the end of the day. I also don't want to have a large team, to be very honest. I think gone are those days where you have 20 team members. I don't
Mm.
want to be a leader to 20 team members, just
Yeah.
not my goal.
Yeah.
And so, again, I want to keep my team small, but be very, very efficient. And I feel like, Ormco has given me that with the two products that I use from them,
Mm.
right?
Yeah. Okay. So for orthodontists listening who are looking to kind of future proof their practices, what trends or innovations from Ormco or just in general are you most excited about?
So I'll talk about Ormco in a second, but I think if, anyone is listening who wants, because in the next 5 years with what's going on in our economy, and
Hmm.
I know you're in the US, I mean,
Hmm.
there's that, and it always comes to Canada
Yeah.
as well. There's lots of changes coming for us, right? And people are talking about the Great Recession and who knows what. And we used to be quite equipped to handle those things,
Hmm.
not anymore though. So we really have to be efficient. That is the most important. As I said earlier, no, gone are those days of 20 staff members, right?
Yeah.
Unless you're running, 1,000 cases or so a year, you don't really need that. So you need to make sure you're efficient. And efficiency comes from using products such as spark aligners and ODB that gives you that efficiency. A highly trained staff and a cross-trained staff, and we've learned that through COVID.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every staff of mine knows everything they can do.
Hmm.
Right. So cross training is very important. And then really using your rep. I have to say, I have a great rep for Ormco, and there are days that, we need to order something, yet my ordering team is not available to do that.
Hmm.
My Ormco rep will come to my office, again, count my brackets and figure out what I need. This is the company that you want to partner with,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That gives you efficiency and that friendship
Hmm.
that you need.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Nizam, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciated our
Well, you're
conversation.
welcome. This was fun.
As always, thank you for joining us. Be sure to subscribe to the Orthodontic Products Podcast to keep up with the latest episodes. And be sure to check out orthodonticproductsonline.com to keep up with the latest industry news. Until next time, take care.